as a lot of you know, if you didn't receive a press release, we have one. We can send it to you. But basically, we got a notice saying that the city wants to remove the tent for violating a camping ordinance, prohibited camping. And, you know, Morris has been here for 6 weeks since day one. She was the original supporter. She was running in there the day that I walked in and putting saline in people's eyes and, you know, pulling them out of the line of fire with ice and generally just making sure that we were safe. And those of us who showed up in sunglasses and not safety gear knew the danger and just truly been amazing. And so I think everything that Melissa has to say is, I think she speaks for all of us when she says yes.
Hi guys, my name is Michelle Narvaez, but most people here know me as Melissa. I live in the village of Inglewood, and I've been coming to help with my community in Broadview for the last 6 weeks. When I first started coming here, I saw what was happening on the news, and I knew I had to do something because it was happening in my own backyard. Once I started showing up to the Broadview ICE processing facility, I realized that the brutality and suffering were so much worse than I ever thought. Peaceful protesters called for transparency of the inhumane conditions those detained were being kept in. Notes of solidarity were tied to fences and songs sung for their liberation, all while ICE agents were erecting an illegal fence across Beach Street, murdering Silverio, and using unnecessary force against protesters, clergy, and media alike. As ICE agents threw flashbangs and tear gas canisters at many of those you see here today, others ran towards the pepper and foam bullets to provide medical support. We carried our fellow protesters out of ICE's line of fire, blocked their bodies with umbrellas, and flushed the tear gas from their eyes with saline. It immediately became clear that, I'm mostly in the background, like I said, just helping people out. So giving speeches like this is just like out of my realm. But yeah, it immediately became clear that we would have to defend ourselves to make our voices heard. Protesters began bringing water, saline, masks, goggles, and snacks to support each other. From this need to protect one another and defend the rights of our detained friends, family, and neighbors, the 8 tent was born. Since the first weeks, I've stood side by side with my community to speak out and take action against the evil and illegal actions being taken by federal agents. I have watched as our small medical supply tent grew and transformed into an epicenter for mutual aid and hope. I have taken heartbroken and shaken families to the very ICE agents they're terrified of, hoping to be a barrier between ICE and the loved ones. Our community members have shown up time and time again in the face of ICE's brutality, terrible weather, the kidnapping and death of our neighbors, and through ongoing battles with the mayor of Broadview's restrictions against our First Amendment rights. I'd like to be clear and say that the community here does not want to cause any issues for the Broadview residents. We respect and appreciate their support and want to provide aid where we can. We understand that Broadview did not ask for the processing facility to be placed here. However, pretending it doesn't exist and removing transparency and visibility of the operations taking place inside the dangerous precedent that borders on complicity. Early on in October, the village of Broadview's mayor, Katrina Thompson, implemented a 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. protesting curfew. The community came out to the town hall meeting respectfully requesting the curfew be rescinded and that we be allowed to protest around the clock. At this time, the 8th tent, which provides services to families of detainees and activists alike, was also requested to be exempt from the curfew and to be allowed to stay. Ultimately, the curfew remained and the mayor provided the exception for the tent. Since that day, we have seen our fight shift from focusing on ICE to trying to placate the village of Broadview's ordinances. conflicting orders, and coordinating. With every new unclear warning, we fear that this symbol of hope and unity would be taken away from us. On Fridays and Saturdays, we protested the restrictions against our First Amendment rights, such as the curfew or the freedom of speech zones. Often we were met with brutality. This time, not at the hands of ICE agents in the building around the corner, but by our very own enforcement agencies. As we pleaded with Illinois State Police to allow us to direct our energy towards the processing facility, they removed our ability to protest on 25th and Harbor. As we were getting pushed back and hit with police batons, ICE agents were using the road to bring young children into the facility with no transparency or oversight. Time and again, we have pleaded with the Village of Broadview to allow us to access to protest the ICE facility, not the local, county, or state law enforcement agencies standing between us and them. Time and again, our pleas were unanswered. Through it all, we continue to remain steadfast in our commitment to support our community. We continue to provide support to families of victims, support each other, and mutual aid to anyone impacted by their operations. We have always and will continue to advocate for peaceful protesting using the platform the Aid Tent has provided. Over the last couple weeks, ongoing conversations have been had with the mayor of Broadview regarding the restrictions currently in place, the tent, the brutality inflicted against activists. At no discussion was had on the state of the tent beyond clarifying its size and scope. Requests were made that single community members cannot achieve and discuss together, such as Broadview's dislike of activists parking in residential areas and the aggressive verbiage used during protests. As community members with no hierarchy or organizational structure, we cannot determine how other protesters will act, and community consensus takes time to accomplish. However, among those conversations, the Aid Tent was provided with these notice about violations. We have worked to remain open and communicated with local officials while standing our ground that our fight is with the ongoing enforcement operations and did not see this coming. Broadview is again trying to hinder our freedom of speech and ability to provide humanitarian aid. The community has stood strong and grown every day and will not see our efforts or the symbol of hope be taken away easily or quietly. Today we provide a demand letter to the Broadview to rescind their violation notices and allow us to remain. We request that Broadview stand down while the appropriate injunctions are filed to prevent the removal of the tents. We will continue to fight for our rights, human decency, and our neighbors. We ask that Broadview take a step back and realize that reducing or removing the activists against enforcement operations doesn't make the Broadview ICE facility disappear. It reduces visibility and accountability for the federal agencies complicit in this abuse.